Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on the channel, Charles Morris, and I'm making another video on discussing how disappointed I am with how Nintendo is really handling Nintendo Switch Online, and these games are supposed to be expected to come out in the future of 2023 for the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advanced Online. There's also games for the NES, SNES, and Nintendo 64 and SEGA Genesis Nintendo Switch Online. And for the rest of the games that are coming out for the rest of 2023, Nintendo has not really given an exact date on when we're actually going to get these titles. They will notify us in everybody's news feed when these games are going to be available. So far, you have 9 Game Boy Color games, 6 Game Boy Advance games, and so far, that's not really that big. I mean, I just have a few of my favorites on the Game Boy Advance, and that is Super Mario Kart. You have one of my other favorites is Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and the rest I'm not really a favorite of. I'm not really a fan of that one tricky puzzle propeller game. And I'm not really well, The Legend of Zelda, that's fine. And I do like the Metroid game on there, but that's not my, I say it's not, like, bad so far, but, Nintendo could have, gave us a bit more for the Game Boy Advance. Like, have another game for the Game Boy Advance. Why not, just give us, like, maybe 1 or 2 additional Game Boy Advance games to start out with. I mean, that would have made, a pretty good amount to start with. I mean, yeah, and the number of Game Boy Advance games are much lower than the Game Boy Color. And I actually don't like the Game Boy Color selection as much as the Game Boy Advance right now, because some of the Game Boy Color games I'm not really a fan of. I just play the Game & Watch gallery. And that was pretty much like almost the only game I've ever touched. Like, Nintendo needs to stop playing the surprise the surprise um their um their fans. They need to stop, throwing in these surprises without, any kind of, I guess you could say, they randomly throw the notification when the next when the next Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games are coming out, but that's not what I've experienced. I've experienced when they've had like a new NES, SNES, and Nintendo 64 or SEGA Genesis game come out and that stuff. They give you notifications on your news feed without even telling you in a direct when this stuff is going to be, coming out. Now, obviously they do not too bad when it comes to, showing us what games they're going to release in the future. But, people like to know exactly when this stuff is going to come out. And that's the stuff that I think Nintendo needs to work on. Because I'm fine with surprises, but, if you make people wait long enough for these games that you said were going to come out in 2023, we'd like to know actually when, so that you could actually, who knows, maybe it would even boost your, how many people wouldn't buy a Nintendo Switch. That maybe you haven't thought about that. But, I know how Nintendo likes to keep things interesting and, you know, I love surprises, but I don't think people are going to really like the fact that when you say, here are the games we're going to release in the near future in 2023. Do you give us a know when? Oh, only when it shows up on our news feeds. Yeah, but do you do it during the direct? No. And that's the problem that we're just gonna have. It's the problem that, everybody that, loves the Nintendo Switch, they're getting pretty sick and tired of hearing, here are the games that are coming out in the near future. Okay, but you give your release date for, other games you have. Okay, that's good. But what about Nintendo Switch Online? You only have the release date show up in the news feed, and yeah, that's yeah. I know you like to keep it surprising, Nintendo, but you really should consider telling us when these new Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance titles and NES, Nintendo 64, and SEGA Genesis games come out. And I mean, give us like some kind of release date info, like in a direct. Now, not only can you check in your news feed when these new games are going to come out, but they come out with like some kind of trailer that talks about, the upcoming release dates for when you get new games added on to the NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, SEGA Genesis Online, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. But we'll have to see where in this month of February we're actually going to get another edition. Well, probably won't. Probably might be next. Probably might be next month. I mean, I'm not Nintendo. I don't make the decisions. So we'll have to see what happens. But Nintendo, you really gotta stop throwing in the surprises on when we're actually going to get these new games, because if you want to broaden the library of the past Nintendo Switch Online games that come with the regular package or the expansion pack or the expansion pass bundle with the Nintendo Switch Online services, you at least need to tell your you need to at least tell your fans and your customers that there is a release date planned for these games. SNES, SNES, Nintendo 64, SEGA Genesis, Online, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced. They all need to get some kind of release date for new games, because I don't think people want to keep on, trying to find out exactly when these new games are coming out. And you won't tell us. You just say near future, and that's all we get. And then we don't even know until after we end up getting something on our news feed that's saying when these games are going to be coming out. This is stupid, Nintendo. And I suggest you be doing better, because we're just sick and tired of trying to play guessing game on when these new games are coming out. And the game I'm most anticipated for is Kirby and the Amazing Mirror for Game Boy Advance. And did you tell us when that release date was going to be? No. You just said near future. And that's what people are getting sick of. So hopefully we get some news soon about when these games are going to be coming out, because you've done good for 2022 releasing games on a monthly schedule. Did you quit that, Nintendo? Did you quit that? Because if you did, then that's not going to look good on your company. And it's going to be making your customers mad. Nintendo, you need to do better than this. And you need to tell us when these new games are coming out, because this is stupid. This is Charles Morris. Have a good day. I will see you all in my next video. And, Nintendo may never even tell us when these new games for Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance is coming out. And even their past games that released for NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, and SEGA Genesis Online. We may never get to know when these games are coming out until a notification on our newsfeed. Have a good day. I will see you all in my next video.